Hello and good evening. JC here from We Are Arsenal. I hope everyone tuning in is well. Just before Christmas kicks off, tonight we will be previewing the upcoming game between Arsenal and Norwich, which I believe is a 3 o'clock kickoff on Boxing Day. I hope everyone will get the chance to watch. And joining me this evening to help preview the game are three excellent guests. First of all, we've got Neil. How are you, mate?
I'm doing well.
I think we've got a bit of a
Jake,
delay.
thank you very much for having us on. There is a bit of a delay, but that's okay.
No problem at all. Up next, we've got John. How are we doing, mate?
Good. I'm looking forward to the stream. Thanks for having me on again. And yeah, I'm looking forward to the game after last night's performance. Although it was Sunderland, you can only beat what's in front of you.
Yeah, well, morale should be high, shouldn't it, after the performance?
Yeah.
I don't know how many of the players will feature in this next fixture, but we'll get an opportunity to talk about that a little later on. And then, last but not least, we've got Keith. How are we doing, mate?
I'm fine, mate. I'm fine. I'm knackered. I'm working too hard. I want to stop working. Other than that, I'm absolutely fine. Cheers for having me on again, mate. It's very much appreciated.
Not a problem at all. Always it's a pleasure to have all three on. Unfortunately, Judge, who normally does join us, is unavailable this evening, but I'm sure he will be keen to get involved to review the game on Boxing Day later on in the evening. But the very first thing that we're going to discuss is recent form between both clubs. Just before we do that, though, go ahead and hit the like button, subscribe if you're new around here. I've also got all of the details for all three panelists down in the description below. So go and follow them on Twitter and also subscribe on YouTube. So without no further ado, we have the recent form of both clubs here in front of us. Arsenal one side, Norwich on the left. And coming to you first, Neil, you can see here on the left-hand side, Arsenal unbeaten in the last four. As John rightly mentioned, most recent victory coming against Sunderland in the Carrow Cup. A fairly convincing win using some of the fringe players and youngsters. What do you make of Arsenal's recent form and what sort of impact do you think it might have coming into this Norwich game?
Encouraging. It's good to wins together in the last four at least. It shows that we have a little bit of steel in us to bounce back from those two losses, especially the Everton one. So I think I fancy our chances against Norwich. It's an intimate ground, so that's going to be a bit of a test for us as well. But I fancy our chances against them.
Brilliant. I'll grab score predictions from each and every one of you at the end of today's stream. So try and keep all of the information in mind when we finally finish up later on this evening. But coming to you next, Keith, obviously some really encouraging results there from Arsenal's point of view, and just as much from a Norwich point of view in the sense that, in their last five, they haven't won. I think the actual results go back way further than that. Should we get excited by our recent form when comparing it to Norwich's, or, are we sort of heads down focused before heading into this game?
I think we should be excited. Looking at how Norwich have played since Dean Smith came in, I think it was the game before the Wolves one when he came in against Southampton, and they had a bit of a bounce, and that was their first back-to-back wins. And weirdly, the game before that, I think against Brentford, was Daniel Farke's last game. They won a game and then they got rid of him. It's interesting what Neil says about it being an intimate ground. I actually stayed in the hotel that's attached to it a little while ago, and it's really compact. I think it's only about 20,000 capacity. But you look at, I would have expected them to have had a bit more of a bounce than they did have. And Dean Smith hasn't really seemed to settle on a formation. He's played about 3 different formations since he's been there. But the big thing for us is not only the way we bounce back from the Man U and Everton games, but it very much looks to me like the passion and the spirit and the intensity of the lads has really upped. I'm not saying it's because Aubameyang's not playing.
Yeah.
but since everything happened, our form, not only just the results, but the nature of the performances seems to have improved massively. And I don't think that's a coincidence because we're 4 games in now.
Yeah. Since that happened, there does seem to be. I don't know. Like you said, it could be. Is there a change of mentality? Is it because maybe the media and the rest of the Premier League were maybe expecting Arsenal to react poorly to what happened with Aubameyang, or not? But yeah, it's been a very, very good reaction from the boys, nevertheless. Coming to you next, John. We're having a look at some of the stats here on the left-hand side. Arsenal find themselves in 4th. It will be the first time in a long, long time that Arsenal have found themselves in 4th place at Christmas. Norwich down in 20th. And it's always talked about, isn't it? No teams ever kind of really beat the drop once the bottom at Christmas. They've scored 8 goals in 17 games. Are there anything there anything there in the recent form that you can see that concerns you from an Arsenal point of view?
No, I've seen Norwich recently in games, and they try to play attacking football on the front foot, but they've no one to put the ball. They've no one to put the ball in the net, and the link between midfield and the forward line there doesn't seem to be connection. Where with us, we're starting to see connection now between the midfield and the forward players. They're linking up. They're all chipping in with goals. So the way Norwich play, I think it'll suit us. It's like Leeds, maybe not as much pressing, but I think this game suits us very handy.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree with you more. It should be, fingers crossed, a fairly routine win. It doesn't seem like there's been too much of a change since they changed managers. They seem to still be fairly poor. Some other stats here. Norwich last won in the Premier League against Southampton 2-1 November 20th. So over a month since they last won a game. And Norwich have had points against teams like Newcastle, a win against Brentford, Burnley as well. So all the teams sort of down the bottom end of the table, they don't seem to really be causing any problems to teams in the top half of the table. Hopefully, Arsenal don't change that. We all know how Arsenal can be sometimes. So the head-to-head record between these two clubs, they've played against each other 61 times in total across various different competitions. Arsenal do, thankfully, trump Norwich in this department, having won 30 of these fixtures. Norwich only winning 11 of them, and then 20 finishing in a draw. Coming back to you first, John, do you think history is on our side for this particular fixture?
Yeah, I think the history is on our side. I think the form. I know the last time we played Norwich, we seen the goal Aubameyang scored. It was a dodgy goal, but nevertheless it was a goal. But at the time we were playing Norwich back then, we lost 3 on the bounce. I think we bet Burnley before that. Mm-hmm. So there was a lot of nerves and pressure on the players going into that game. That's why I think it didn't make it more of a convincing scoreline.
Yeah.
There was a lot of nerves going into that game, where now we're confident, we're scoring. Norwich couldn't even beat Newcastle, and Newcastle were down to 10 men for 80 plus minutes. So I'm very confident, but it's the Premier League. Anything can happen.
Yeah, anything can
That's
happen.
The problem.
Absolutely. Coming to you next, Keith. Obviously, we've just sort of very briefly touched on the sort of overall record between these two clubs over the various years that we've played. But Arsenal last lost to Norwich in the Premier League 1-0 away from home back in 2012. So does that give you any encouragement heading into this game?
From my own personal point of view, not remembering back that far, no. From the point of view of the boys, yeah, that's 9 years ago. But as we've just said, it should be a straightforward victory for us, but this is Arsenal, and I'm fully realistic, and there's going to be games where we're not at it. We're not going to be that consistent due to the average age of the squad, but this is one of those. I mean, they're bottom of the league. They're minus 26. It's not even Christmas yet, and I'm a big believer. And you look at the goal differences of teams. If you look at the top 3, that's going to be the top 3 at the end of the season. You just look at the goal difference. And for a side to be minus 26 after, 17 games played?
17 games, yeah, for them.
Yeah, there's only one direction that this Norwich side's going down. And these are the teams, we got to put them away. we've got to be efficient and we've got to put them away. But yeah, I don't see any problems Boxing Day realistically.
No, and I agree with you on that point. Actually, if this whole top four thing that none of us expected us to be in the top four race, come Christmas time, we do find ourselves there. Realistically, if we want to still be in that conversation come the end of the season, these are the games that we have to be winning. No questions, no negotiations. They are wins regardless. There are going to be much tougher games ahead. We've got Wolves and Man City towards the back end of December, beginning of January. So yeah, heading into those games off the back of a convincing win against Norwich is an absolute must, in my opinion.
These games, you need to be putting the goal difference to bed as well, because obviously ours is not great, and it's an opportunity to improve it.
Yeah, well, when you look at some of the other games they've played in recently, going back to the previous slide, there are a few teams they've played against that have absolutely battered them in terms of goals conceded. So yeah, hopefully a good opportunity. The team were fairly rested, I suppose, midweek when we played Sunderland. I know some of the first team players did come on and even start for that matter, which is a conversation we're going to have a little later in today's show in terms of who we want to play, who we feel is going to start and so on. But coming to you finally, before we move into the next slide, Neil, we've got three of the most recent fixtures here on screen. Funnily enough, one of those fixtures, which was back in September earlier this year, was one of the games that really kind of helped Arsenal kick on after the way we started the season, having lost 3 games. Prior to that, we beat Norwich 4-0, which is obviously a very, very good scoreline, and then a draw before that. What sort of Arsenal are you expecting to turn up? Because there's a mixture of results there. There's the nervy Arsenal that turned up in the 1-0 win that kickstarted the season. There's the convincing Arsenal that battered Norwich 4-0. And then there's, well, a not so convincing result there at 2-2. So what sort of Arsenal were you expecting to turn up based on those 3 most recent meetings?
So I would like to think that based on those 4 wins and the spirit at camp, I would like to think that we're going to go to Carrow Road with wind in our sails and come off with a convincing win. That is what I would like to think. However, we thought it would have been the same thing when we went to Everton, and it didn't turn out that way. So, putting all those things aside and trying to put that mentality to bed that, this is Arsenal and, we can't, put our money on Arsenal. I think we're going to, as I said in the beginning, I fancy our chances going there and coming out a convincing win. They conceded 9 goals at home this season. So, I mean, with the way that our guys are firing in, our midfield is clicking, the likes of Odegaard and stuff, and then I'm expecting him to just have the same team out there on the pitch come Sunday, with the rotation of Emil Smith-Rowe coming in maybe later in the game. I can see us going there and putting at least 3 in the back of the net, and I say that wholeheartedly with a Christmas spirit.
There is one thing that you mentioned there, a very good point, is that everyone expected us to beat Everton when we turned up at their gaff, maybe players included. And hopefully, just hopefully, they'll use that game as a bit of a learn and motivation that they can't take this for granted. They can't turn up just thinking they'll turn up and play football for 90 minutes and they're guaranteed to win it at the end of it. So hopefully they'll use that as a learn moving forwards. In this next section, I've highlighted 2 key players for both sides. Obviously, Arsenal have got several players that are in form at the moment, but I think the most in-form player currently for Arsenal is Gabriel Martinelli. I've got an accompanied heat map there and some of his stats so far this season. How much of an impact, Neil, do you think someone like Gabriel Martinelli can have against a really poor Norwich on Boxing Day?
I think he can have an impact. My worry about his impact on the game is the physicality of Norwich and what that for him because I know he's going to be a target man. The Norwich defenders are going to target him. Dean Smith, his record against Arteta isn't exactly poor. So I'm thinking that he's going to come out with a game plan. And as you rightfully said, we need to go there with the mentality to play 90 minutes of football and not that we have a win in the bag because they have such poor form. You know, so that's my thoughts on Martinelli.
Keith, coming to you next. So obviously Martinelli is in some great form at the minute. There are other players like Martin Odegaard, Bukayo Saka, Lacazette, who's even bagged a few goals of late as well. You know, what players should be looking at in this game for Arsenal?
I think Odegaard can definitely influence it. I saw today that I think he's created more goal scoring chances than anyone else. I think 19 in I can't remember how many games. I would expect that he will have a certain amount of space, especially in the second half. So he's going to have an influence. I think Lacazette's going to have an influence. Just doing what he's been doing, bringing everyone else into the game. He's incredibly unselfish as a front man, to be honest. Incredibly unselfish. But I think the young man there, I reckon every single defender that's lining up for Norwich on Saturday will be absolutely bricking it of going up against him because he's a street baller. He doesn't stop, and we all know how quick he is, but he's incredibly strong as well for such a young lad. And he's obviously bulked up recently, but I think he could well be. I don't want him to be the main man because there seems to be a lot of expectation coming on his shoulders again, which he shouldn't really be in that position, but he is. And I think he will be the one to watch, definitely.
John, coming to you next. You know, at the moment, the talk of the town for Arsenal, at least, is the exciting sort of forward line that we have in the likes of players just mentioned. But away from those players, you know, is there anyone else that we should be looking at, whether it be maybe in midfield or even in defence for that matter? Because there might be large parts of the game where, you know, the defenders are not really tested, Ramsdale included. So is there anything that you're looking for from a sort of defensive point of view or a sort of deeper midfield point of view from Arsenal?
I'm happy with the back five, including the keeper. Probably the most confident I've felt in over the last few seasons. They talk to each other, they communicate, they look solid. You see Ramsdale when we scored a goal, there's knee slides, he riles up the fans behind him. So
he does.
Our back five midfield is disappointing for me when it comes to. I've been really disappointed with Thomas Partey. I know he's had injuries, but he's had more than enough time in games, and he's been poor, really poor. So he needs to start stepping up. And as for Xhaka, you know what you're going to get with Xhaka, but Partey's really disappointed me.
Well, I suppose, mentioning what you've said there, you know, it's a great opportunity for people like Thomas Partey, Granit Xhaka, and a few others to really kind of make a point that, you know, they should really be stepping up and throwing out, you know, 8 or 9 out of 10 type performances.
Yeah.
Coming back to you quickly, John, we've got Timo Pukki there on the right-hand side. He scored 5 goals in 17 starts. You know, they've only scored 8 goals this season. I found it, with all due respect, quite difficult to pick out a key player as such because they just haven't really been at the races this season, unfortunately. But, you know, in terms of Timo Pukki, should we be afraid? Is he someone that we really need to kind of focus on maybe those sort of counter-attacks?
He likes to spin off the centre-backs, but I'm confident at the moment with Gabriel and Ben White back there and even Tomiyasu. I'm confident any front line we play at the moment. But, you know, I'm fairly confident. Like they lost Buendia to Villa. He was kind of their creative player, and then they got in Gilmore from Chelsea, but he didn't really get games till Dean Smith came in. So, but I wouldn't be worried about Pukki at all. Not with Gabriel. And
you'd like to think that the pair of them at the back that mentioned
can clean up.
Yeah, you'd like to think of it. Keith, are there outside of Timo Pukki any other sort of Norwich players that you're worried about?
No, not really. I was looking at Pukki's stats, and I think he's bagged 3 in the last 7, so he's on the up. But he scored 5 of their 8 goals. He's literally he's really their main man, and he does take chances. As John just said, though, I'm fairly certain that our two centre backs should easily have enough. It depends what formation that Dean Smith plays, though. If he goes with him as a lone striker, then that kind of plays into our hands. If he goes 4-3-3, or I think there's one game he went 4-1-3-1. It depends what formation he plays, but I don't really see them causing too many problems. Max Aarons, if he's playing, he's always a genuine threat. And as John just said, Billy Gilmore, he's an incredible little player. But you know, he's just one player for them. I don't really see anyone other than Timu Pukki being any sort of a problem for us.
Yeah. And coming to you. Yeah. And coming to you lastly, Neil, anything to add on any sort of threats, any concerns that you have from a Norwich point of view, whether it be the way they set up or an individual player or a couple of players for that matter?
Not so much the players, and that's no disrespect to the team. I just think that Dean Smith is sadly underrated as a manager, and he could set up this Norwich team to give us a good game on Sunday. So that's my only concern about this Norwich team, to be honest. Them being at home and everything, the crowd support. So we'll be seen.
Yeah, it just depends on what type of Norwich turn up, I suppose. Right, so this is a fun bit. When I was writing this up earlier, I was absolutely shocked at the list of names that I came across. So obviously we've got Arsenal on one side. It doesn't necessarily mean that all 7 players mentioned, likewise the 10 mentioned for Norwich, aren't going to be available for the game on Boxing Day. This is the sort of current injury list or unavailability list for both clubs, according to the Premier League. A couple of players there, for example, like Kolasinac, he's definitely unavailable. Aubameyang, we all know that he's unavailable. Well, we all know the reason why he's unavailable. Lokonga, Maori, and Chambers have all tested positive for COVID, so they're definitely not going to be available. I think Maitland-Niles has got some form of illness. And then Tomiyasu, from what I read earlier on, is a sort of player that's going to be assessed ahead of the game. I imagine he'll be available. From an Arsenal point of view, Neil, in terms of players that aren't available for Arsenal, any concerns there for you?
Tomiyasu, man. Tomiyasu, he's been so vital to our right side. I mean, Sambi, I was hoping that he would be past this COVID thing, but seems like he's still ill. Yeah, my only concern of not having Tomiyasu in the team is going to be kind of. I mean, Cedric is okay. He's a decent enough replay for just maybe 1 or 2 games, but not too much. Not too much. I really would like to hope that Tomiyasu is fit enough for Sunday, because we need to pick up 3 points at this game. We need to, because the next set of games coming up is not going to be an easy road for us. So we need to focus on getting these 3 points 100% in the bag.
Completely agree with you. Really, really do. Coming to you next, Keith, then, just kind of coming off the back of Neil's points there. We've got Wolves in quite close succession to Norwich. Tomiyasu is a slight doubt for the game. Would you rest him and bring someone like Cedric in, who's probably the only player available to play at right back unless you play Ben White there? Would you make that change and rest him for the Wolves game? And are there any other players on that list as a kind of second question that are a concern for you, or are you pretty happy?
You just hit the nail on the head. Exactly what I was going to say. When you look at the players there, Chambers, Ainsley, Tomiyasu, all potentially could be playing right back. Now, in answer to your first question, if Tomiyasu is anything less than 75% fit, don't even risk him. Wolves is a much bigger game than this one, because Wolves' defence is absolutely like top draw, and it's going to take some to break them down. Teams like Man City haven't been able to break them down very easily, and they only got through him with a sketchy penalty. So if he is not anywhere near full fitness, I wouldn't risk him. I'd just go with Cedric as right back, to be honest. The other ones that concern me, I'd like to have seen Ainsley play a bit more, to be honest, since the Watford game. Obviously, Sambi, Pablo Mari, and Callum Chambers, they're COVID, so there's nothing you can do about that. But yeah, I'm just concerned why Ainsley hasn't had a look in since the Watford game, and understandably, it's an illness he's got, but not COVID.
That's right.
Yeah, so that's what it is. There's nothing you can do with that. I'm really not bothered about Aubameyang. He's said nothing since this has come out. All right, granted, he doesn't seem to have been on Instagram that much either, having any more tattoos or anything. But I would have hoped if there were any signs that he wanted to force his way back in, some sort of statement would have come out, or he would have done an open letter on his socials or anything like that. And he's done nothing. Done nothing to apologise for, the lacklustre performances or the being late more than once. So I think he's done. I don't really expect to see him play again. If he does, I'll be like when Pepe come on. Be like, whoa, what are you doing here?
Yeah, you make a really good point about the apology, actually. And as you mentioned that, the one thing that popped into my head was after the manner in which we lost against Manchester United, he actually did post something on Instagram apologizing and saying that, as a team, we were going to come back stronger and blah, blah, blah. And, if he can apologize off the back of a defeat, what's stopping him apologizing off of the back of maybe, his career potentially ending at Arsenal, having the captaincy stripped of him? Like, what more does it need to take to warrant an apology publicly to the Arsenal fans in his book? So it's a really good point you make there, actually. John, coming to you next. I think both boys have covered it pretty well, but anything to add in terms of players unavailable for Arsenal?
No, they've covered it all, but on Tomiyasu, as Keith said, I would, if he's anything less than 75%, I would rest him, because against Wolves, you've Adama Traore on one side, and then on the other side, you've Pedro Neto and Podence, where they're good wide players, so we need Tomiyasu ready, and as Keith said as well, we need him going forward for the Wolves game, so I wouldn't risk it for this game. We should have enough. We should have enough to win this game without him, but we'll see. And Sambi again, I would have liked to see Sambi fit and raring to go again, but it is what it is.
Yeah, well, as Keith said as well, these types of games against Norwich, not being disrespectful, but with the way the fixture list is at the moment in December, when you're playing against the poorer teams in the Premier League, you can bring in players like Ainsley Maitland-Niles, for example, and he's had some good performances for Arsenal recently.
He played well,
so it's a real shame.
Even looking at the Norwich injuries, like they're missing Hanley, he's a centre back. They're missing Kabak, he's a centre back, and then the top, then that Andrew, I won't pronounce the second name, he's a centre back. So they seem to be missing a lot of centre backs, and I'm sure Hanley starts a lot of games. So that's a sign of something good that they're missing a few.
Yeah, well, look, with all of these kind of injury updates, managers, they like to play mind games and stuff.
They do, yeah.
With Tomiyasu, for example, at the moment it's down as he'll be assessed ahead of the game, and I'm sure there'll be a few other players for Arsenal as well as Norwich. I'm sure these injury and unavailable lists will change quite a lot.
They soon change
between sort of now and Boxing Day. But any coming back to you, John, very quickly, because you mentioned a few Norwich players there, and I'm not a Norwich enthusiast. I don't know who half these players are. Any sort of positives to take from players who are unavailable come Boxing Day?
They're missing Josh Sargent. I think he's 21-year-old striker. He's not a threat, but he's pace, so he'd run in behind. So I thought he would have played him and Pukki up front against us. So that's out of it. And then no one really else there. The rest I don't really follow Norwich myself.
I'm in the same boat. That's why I'm asking you.
Yeah.
It's a bit of a cop out of me, that is. Keith, I'm going to do the same to you, because as I said to John, I don't really know the Norwich side that well. There's a few players that come to mind that I'm aware of, like Kabak, for example, because he played at Liverpool last year. Hanley,
he's about 50.
Mentioned, Cantwell, stuff like that. Any players on that list there that is a positive in terms of who might not be available? Oh, you're on mute, Keith.
Sorry, I'm back now. The dog was barking, so I muted myself. I'm aware of Kabak because of his time at Liverpool last season. I'm aware of Grant Hanley. Cantwell did look quite good last season, but he's not got many games this year. I think he's only played about 10 games, something like that. And what I was saying while I was still on mute, my mum's a Norwich fan. My parents live in Norfolk, and I should know more about Norwich, but I just don't. Todd Cantwell, like I say, is the only other one. And Max Aaron's obviously because we were looking at him in the summer, or the rumours were that we were, in talks with his agent and stuff. So no, I don't really know very much about them at all, other than Timu Pukki, because he kind of hit the ground running when he first came over, and I think he scored a hat trick in one of his first games.
Yeah.
But no, the rest of them, I literally really, really bad. I don't know them.
All we know with Norwich is they'll get relegated this season and they'll be back up next season and then relegated and then back up.
New West Brom, aren't they?
They're that yo-yo club, aren't they? They're very much a yo-yo club. So you never know. We might be surprised by them. Neil, anything to add on the unavailability of some of these players and any superstars in there that we're not aware of?
Nope. No disrespect, but unfortunately, I'm not as yourself, I'm not a Norwich enthusiast. So unless if they have links to Arsenal, I didn't. Oh, somebody lock yourself away. They're coming.
Police are coming. Policia. I think it's nothing that we need to concern ourselves about too much. Okie dokie. So moving into the kind of final part of today's live show. For anyone who is watching and has enjoyed so far, please do hit a like on today's stream and subscribe if you're new around here. Prediction time. The team I've got on screen at the moment is the winning team from, I think, 3 games in a row prior to the Sunderland game. Obviously, that was a much rotated side. I've got Tomiyasu in there at right back because I do think he will be available for selection. Coming to you first, Neil, in terms of team selection predictions. We've got the 11 there, the winning Arsenal side, but we've also got a couple of other players on the right-hand side. We've got Smith Rowe, who is in some very, very fine form before he picked up a little injury. We've got Tavares, who's been in good form as well this season, and Ketia, who bagged a hat-trick mid-week, and someone that needs minutes to potentially sign a new contract. And then last but not least, Pepe, who's had the odd sniff here and there. So my question to you is, would you go with the 11 I've got on screen? And if not, who are you bringing in from the players I've got mentioned on the right-hand side?
In the wise words of the judge, if it's broken, don't fix it. So I'll go with this starting 11. And I would, at points in the game, at 60-odd minute, I'll probably, depending on what's going on, if we need to score goals, I'll bring Smith Rowe on. If we don't need to score goals, I'll bring him on. But on another person, if we need to score goals, I would bring on Pepe. Because say what you will about Pepe, I have knocked Pepe quite a bit as well. But he does have an effect on the game. He draws players in, players on. He gets the ball into the 18-yard box. It may ricochet, it may score. You don't know, but he still has that type of effect. So with this 11, and my 2 for sure substitutions would be Smith Rowe and Pepe.
Coming to you next, Keith. What are your thoughts on what I've mentioned to Neil?
I entirely agree with your lineup. I think that's exactly how it will be, and that's exactly how it should be as well. As Neil said, quoting our good friend the judge, if it ain't broken, don't fix it. The thing with Pepe, I've been quite harsh on him as well, and I still don't really think he's cut out for either us or the Premier League. But he's a confidence player. There are times you look at him and he almost looks like a scared kid. Now, his first half against Sunderland, I thought was pretty shocking. But in the second half, he was a different beast. Denver Hume was the guy that came on as sub, and like Pepe begged him twice, he just gave him a torrid time. So his confidence will now be up. So I'd be tempted to throw him in. And also, if they are looking at moving him on, like we said before, he needs to be in the public consciousness, so he needs to be getting minutes. The good thing for me is that I make no secret of the fact that this bloke here is literally my favourite Arsenal player, and the first favourite Arsenal player I've had probably since the Dutchman that used to wear that number 10 shirt as well.
Who could that be, I wonder?
The fact that he was playing so well and he's had a knock and he was out for a couple of games and he now can't get back in is testament to the four that we've got playing up front and the squad that Arteta has built. And I kind of have this weird dream that in a couple of years' time, Martinelli will be up front, Saka, Odegaard and Emile Smith-Rowe will be the three there, and that will be our attacking lineup for years to come. That's entirely what I want to see long term. But yeah, I think it's actually great that Emile can't get back in the side at the moment because it shows how well everyone else is playing. And I always like seeing Tavares come on because you know when he's going to shoot, and it's all right when hitting bangers from 45 yards, and Arteta must be going absolutely nuts on the sideline.
Yeah.
But it makes me laugh when we're winning. I don't want to see them losing.
Anything to add on that, John? Any changes on that starting 11? Would you bring in any of the boys on the right hand side, or even names not mentioned?
I'd bring in Pepe for Saka. I give him a rest. I know it's Saka, and you don't want to rest him, but I have a fear he'll get injured. He's played so many games, so many minutes. He's always running. He puts every bit of effort into everything he does. So I'd certainly rest him. And look, you can bring him on in the second half if the game's not going our way. Again, pace, so I'd bring in Pepe. But if Saka starts, I'm just as happy. Everything else I'm happy with.
Yeah, it's a good problem to have at the moment.
It is.
In the sort of the final third of the pitch.
Over
a little
the season,
bit light at the back, maybe. I think we all saw that when Cedric came on the other night. So
and he scored a banger against Norwich on his debut.
He did, yeah. He's got a good record against Norwich. So good problems and good headaches for Arteta to have. Before we finish up, I'm going to come straight back to you on this one, John. What is your score prediction for Norwich versus Arsenal?
I'm going to go 4-0 win.
Keith?
Oof. I agree with John. I was going to say 3-0 because the other lot beaten 3-0. We need to top that. Not that they're living rent-free in my head or anything, but I've got a feeling for 4-0. So I'll agree with John on this one.
Neil?
You know what? Because it's Christmas, I'm gonna go with the boys. I'm gonna go 4-0 to the Arsenal.
I think we've got a full house then. I'll go 4-0 as well, just for the sake of going 4-0. And keep
Who's
it
first
clean
goal
across
scorer?
the board. Keep it clean across the board.
Go first goal scorer.
Goal scorers. I would like to think that Martinelli and Odegaard will continue their hot streak of goal scoring form. What about you, John?
I'd like Lacazette to get a goal. He deserves it. He's just phenomenal the way he's playing. He deserves a goal or two.
Keith?
The first name that popped in my head was Odegaard. I can see Odegaard scoring. But what John said there is absolutely spot on. Lacazette really deserves a goal.
Yeah,
and maybe one apiece for Saka and Smith-Rowe when he comes on.
Well, Smith-Rowe loves a goal off the bench at the moment, doesn't he? So we can't rule that out. Any differences in opinion then, Neil, in terms of people who may score against Norwich, if we score?
I'm going to go for Laka with a brace.
Nice.
Emile Smith-Rowe is going to come off the bench and score. And I'm going to go for an odd one here. Tom Partey. That's my 4 goals.
Oh, yeah.
Tom Partey. 30-yard banger, top bins. He needs one of them, doesn't he?
And 30-yard, not in Keith's backyard, but in the back of the net. And Laka with a brace. That's my 4 goals right there.
Nice. Well, let's hope that when we do the live show after the game, we can all be smiling as much as we are now and laughing and talking about how who got it right here and there and wherever else. But that is going to about wrap things up for this evening. So drop a like on the stream. Don't forget to subscribe if you're new around here. But before we finish off, Neil, thank you very much for coming on. Where can people find you, my friend?
You can find me on Twitter at CannonFC, and you can find me on Facebook and Instagram as Neil the Realtor. You can also find me on YouTube as CannonFC. Come on, people, let us build this thing, build something.
Well, no, thank you very much for coming on. I really do appreciate it. And John, another one, 2 in a row now for you. So you're getting to come back into this YouTube thing, this YouTube journey.
Yeah.
I really do appreciate you coming on. Where can the people find you, my friend?
I'm really enjoying it. Thanks for having me on again. And you can find me at the moment. It's just Twitter. It's at John Jordan 2021. I haven't posted a lot recently, but I'll be back fully soon. So follow me if you like.
Good man. And we've got Keith from Mostly Arsenal, who's just released his brand new series, Topical Storm. First episode out on the channel already. And as we were speaking earlier, you're thinking about doing some live streams of your own in the new year. Tell the people all about it.
Yes, I am. Thanks, Jake. Thanks again for having us on. This will be coming really, really regularly. This I would first like to say, hopefully my complacency hasn't come across as arrogance about Norwich. It seemed I might have been a little bit dismissive about them, but it's just anyway, I digress. So I've started this thing called Topical Storm, where I like talking about topical stuff. Can be literally anything, mostly Arsenal related, but obviously other stuff in the world as well, but mostly Arsenal content, and I'll be doing that once a week. I'm planning to start doing lives in the new year. As I said to you guys earlier, I've got a long form promise to the good people at Cannon Chatter, so I promised them that I would do my first live with them, so that's what I'll do. But then after that, Topical Storm will be up and running, and I'll get you guys on as often as you want to be on there. I know we've all got busy lives and we have commitments outside of these screens that we sit in front of. But that's the plan for the new year, to keep pushing on with that. Anyone who wants to find me, you can find me on Twitter at the Mad Rambling One. I live there quite a lot, and you can also find me on YouTube at Mostly Arsenal. Come along, have a look if you like my slightly irreverent look at things. It's not all football; it's other stuff as well. But yeah, have a look and see what you reckon. Thank you very much.
No problem at all. As mentioned earlier on, if you have stayed for the entirety of this show, details for the lads are down in the description below. Follow them on Twitter, subscribe on YouTube. But you will next find definitely myself. I don't know how many of these chats will be available, but I'm sure some of them will be after the game against Norwich. But for now, we are out.